Yes, guys. Amazing. So are you? And welcome to just a review of a Dungeons and Dragons uh, video talking about Baldur's Gate 3. Um, so the first video that we're going to watch is how to learn to play D&D with Baldur's Gate 3, and then we're going to be watching how to start your own D&D game from learning Baldur's Gate, or from while playing Baldur's Gate. So, without further ado, let's get right into it.
Hello everyone, with Baldur's Gate 3 upon us, we have kind of a unique opportunity here with Dungeons & Dragons. I'm actually here with Dan Dillon to talk about the game. We've both been in early access for quite some time.
Yeah.
I'm very shocked at how much the Baldur's Gate 3 experience is almost virtually identical to the D&D tabletop experience.
Yeah, and it starts you that way right off the bat. As soon as you get into it and start building your character, I mean, it's like building a D&D character.
So you pick your origin, your race, your sub-race, your class, your background, and then you have 27 abilities. So we have an elf, a tiefling, a drow, a human, a githyanki, a dwarf, a half-elf, a halfling, a gnome, a dragonborn, and a half-orc. And you can see on the right here that it looks like these are all the stats. Yeah, okay, so this really is like Dungeons and Dragons. I am really quickly going to turn the font size down because it's a little too big. I don't know why it's not letting me move it to a more
It's
better
set up
position,
and
but
built exactly the same way.
For those that don't know,
weird.
maybe are playing the game,
Sure.
how close is it? Because it is remarkably close to my eyes of like,
Yeah.
it's all the same stats, it's all the same skills, it's the same roles.
Yep, skill proficiencies, classes.
So we have Barbarian, Bard, Cleric, Druid, Fighter, Monk, Paladin, Ranger, Rogue, Sorcerer, Warlock, and Wizard. So yeah, it's pretty much all the same.
Subclasses, playable races, all of that, yeah.
Okay.
What's
Well, for the character builder, it looks enjoyable so far.
stands out the most to you is in terms of like how close it is?
It's probably the fact that the class structure is exactly what you would see in your tabletop D&D experience. Now, they do some things, their own way to make it fit for the video game environment that it lives in, but I mean, it's the same, right? If you're building a fighter, you're going to be building a fighter that you are familiar with, and if you were to play Baldur's Gate 3 first and then try out D&D with your friends for the first time, it's going to be completely familiar, right? You're going to see all of the same fighter features that you're, used to using from your character in the video game.
This is a great introduction for people who are curious about D&D to maybe actually learn a bit about D&D.
Yeah.
Like this game to me teaches you combat rounds and everything else.
Yeah,
Like this game to me teaches you.
So this is a lot. Like, let's just look at what we have here.
Combat
and
rounds and everything else.
Okay, hold on. So we have our turns up here so that you can see who's going. You have all of your actions here, any weapons that you have, your health, or armor maybe, the rounds, your objective, a mini-map. There's a lot happening here.
Yeah, since the combat is turn-based, and I mean, even outside of combat, even in dialogues and interactions where it has, this skill is going to be needed to get this person on your side or whatever, it'll tell you what skill it's using, it'll tell you what sort of check it's going to be. You'll see the D20 roll and see what you need and what you're adding to it. And, you get to use all of that.
That's cool.
Like if you have a guidance spell that can be used to help boost it, all that is there. So that's really just sort of visually walking you through.
We finally got a
I would
D&D
actually
game.
recommend this. Like if you had a friend that was like, "Hey, I really want to learn D&D, but I don't have a dungeon master right now."
I mean,
I feel pretty confident in giving them Baldur's Gate 3 and saying,
Oh,
"You're going to figure it out using this." Other than like improv,
Absolutely. Like, if you're just talking about getting a hook into the imaginative feel of the world of D&D, the Sword Coast or Forgotten Realms in particular, yeah, for sure. And then if you have someone who's a video game player and, this is just, they'll be ducked to a pond in this sort of thing, then yeah, this is a great introduction to D&D for them.
I don't always get to play as much D&D as I would like.
Yeah.
This is a great way for me to figure out if I like a character in some ways, even from like the choices you get in the video game in terms of like what you get to say. You can
But that's the thing. So Dungeons and Dragons, at least Wizards of the Coast, it's pretty much a pay to experience it all. Obviously, there's loads of piracy now, and there has been for a long time, where you can just get it all for free and you can build it yourself. But is Baldur Gate 3 only based off of the basic rules that are found in like the player's handbook and the monster manual? Like, is this game a quote-unquote pay-to-win, where you buy upgrades or more source materials, we'll say, where you can make your characters cooler, but of course you have to pay money for it? That's kind of like, what in-app purchases are there,
figure out the personality, or figure out, okay, maybe I actually like being a tank far more.
Yeah.
Once I've played a little bit of Baldur's Gate 3, instead of being a squishy wizard, I'm like, wow, I seem to die a lot because I'm putting myself in the fray in a bad way. I think there's like
I know I interrupted, but I really do like the idea of using the game to practice characters if it is actually like 100% based off of Dungeons and Dragons and using items from Dungeons and Dragons. They said that they have it a little bit of their own way because of video game, but it'd be really cool if it was actually like you could test out different classes and builds and then find a way to maybe even copy your character's stuff into D&D Beyond, maybe? I doubt they have that, but that would just be a cool integration that they would make.
educational moments there.
Yeah, and the way the Larian has set up the combat system, it mirrors D&D so well in just the pieces and parts of how the combat...
I really hate these types of things because you have to remember where everything was, like what skill was where, right? And then it looks like on the right is all your items. I just don't like these types of UIs where there's so much junk that you have to remember for what it does, because it gives you images, which great, but I don't know what they do, and so I'll have to remember it every single time, and it's just going to take a while.
functions, I think it's a really great way to try out different play styles. And since it's, not Twitch reaction-based video game real-time combat, it is turn-based, I think it's going to be very applicable to getting a feel for how a class or, a spell set might work on your regular D&D table, but you can kind of beta test it out a little bit on your computer.
The one thing Baldur's Gate 3 can't at this moment do is probably teach you improv necessarily,
Right,
or the
right.
back and it does. I love the dialogue options, and there are a ton, and
Yeah.
choices that actually matter in this game.
Yes.
That's another thing that's really important to D&D is
It's
things can
choice-based
go off
game.
the rails, and I kind of feel like Baldur's Gate 3 can go
Oh, right, because you can have sex in this game. I completely forgot.
off the rails as well. You can make some choices that heavily impact the storyline. This is not completely linear.
Yeah, there's so many different ways that a lot of these encounters can play out. There's an encounter where you run into a gnome
Yeah.
who's in a situation and they are in some dire straits, and you can help them, or you can take the kind of jerk move and make their situation way worse. And I never thought to take that option, but I saw someone do that,
Yeah.
and it blew my mind that was even a thing that you could do in the game. So just the obviously you can't do absolutely anything in a video game, but
do
this
a
game,
lot.
this game,
Yeah, because in a video game everything's coded. So unlike D&D where you make a choice, and the DM can do, whatever on the spot, you're only going to have 2 choices in a video game, maybe 3, but you're stuck to the code that somebody wrote.
gives you so many different paths and makes so many different choices available to you and makes them meaningful that it's really inspiring.
Someone who doesn't get to play D&D as often as they'd like, this is very cathartic of like, I can just jump in on my own time.
Is it multiplayer though?
For sure. And that's the thing we hear sometimes, like, oh, I can't find a group. I'd love to play D&D, but I don't have anyone to play with. Like, this is going to be a great stand-in for that, especially with the
Hopefully they add some type of multiplayer where you can just play like stories
that you have and approaches.
I would absolutely advise someone, if you're curious about D&D, check out Baldur's Gate 3, play that, and you're going to get a sense of the action economy. You're going to get the sense of how social interactions work. You're going to definitely get the sense of how weird D&D can go. Depending on your dungeon master, we've already seen some very interesting romantic options in the game.
Yep.
And it really does like capture that humor. So I feel like the art, the classes, all of it is kind of there.
Yeah, and speaking of the Dungeon Master, that's one thing that if you've never played D&D tabletop, that you will get a sense of having
well, this is actually interesting. I thought it was going to be
because the
like
narrator in the game,
awful, but
that
this is
voiceover,
cool.
I love it. It's so well done.
It
so takes
smart.
over that Dungeon Master role where it sort of narrates to you, things your character might feel.
Honestly, they could. Well, never mind. I was going to say they could have integrated ChatGPT to make new stories, but then it would have to literally create more of the game, which can't do that because it's only text-based. Well, they could create more, but it would have to. Yeah, your storage would catch on fire.
Or perceive that are not immediately apparent on the screen. And instead of just giving you text to read, it actually speaks it to you. And it speaks it to you like a dungeon
Which is so nice.
And loving every minute of it.
It's so nice.
And that is going to...
I absolutely hate dialogue that I have to read. I'm going to be honest. Like, I know it's supposed to be like, add your own voice, make it cool. But I hate it. Because sometimes I'll be saying a long-ass sentence for an hour, and it's like, nobody wants to hear me talk for an hour. I don't have a great voice when it comes to like speaking for long periods of time. So having an actual narrator is great.
Help the transition for someone who's never played in a session of D&D before, because it's different than other hobbies and other things that you can do, right? It's not the same as playing a board game or a card game with your friends. And so having that narrator, that DM voice sort of letting you dip your toes into that pool, you're going to be ready for it when you're sitting around the table with some friends playing D&D.
I really hope we get a lot of tabletop role players out of this game.
I hope so too.
I'm going to be honest. If this game is as good as you say, people are probably going to like it more than the D&D that you have created for the past, 50, 60 years? Obviously, it's not social interaction, because it sounds like it's only single player, but it sounds like this is going to make a lot of money, but then pretty much keep people away from buying your books. I think you have done a good thing and a bad thing for yourself, because a lot of people hate Wizards of the Coast right now because they are making way too many books that are just fucking expensive. And so a game like this, and now there are other Baldur's Gates, and I haven't looked at them, and I have no idea what they are, but this game is probably going to make a lot of money, and then they're going to lose money again because nobody's going to be buying the books because they're playing Baldur's Gate. So that's just what I think as a gamer and as somebody who understands the drama between Wizards of the Coast and the community.
Yeah, and I hope we get a lot of just back and forth cross-pollination on it, right?
That's what they hope.
Yeah, we can get so much inspiration on how to run.
I just figured it out. So they're making Baldur's Gate 3 as an advertisement to kind of like the gateway drug for Dungeons and Dragons. They want people to play a video game because they understand that more people will take the time to be by themselves to play the game, and then they'll be like, oh yeah, I should totally go and like buy the books and do this and impression and stuff, and it's like, well, I don't know if that's gonna be how it goes.
Your tabletop games from the video game, just having the ideas of multiple levels to a combat. You know, if you just add the rooftops as something, it's so easy when you're thinking about.
They're not talking about the
as
stories
a
though.
grid map that's printed in the adventure, or what you're drawing on a mat. Thinking about things like rooftops, multiple floors to a building, the interior of the tavern, not just the street that is drawn.
Yeah.
Thinking about that as a DM can really help you set up some just
I want to see.
very
Here, I'll let them
memorable
finish
encounters.
talking.
That would have otherwise been kind of ho-hum.
Okay. What are some of the people saying? Okay, so it says, I'm more racing as of 9 hours ago. As a guy who never played D&D, who got hyped after the film to explore it, there couldn't be a better time for me to try Baldur and immerse into the D&D. Mainly been a DM for more than 2 decades and has run and played hundreds of campaigns. This game is like a dream finally realized. I had a blast with the EA and I can't wait to the final release after 4 long years. So people are excited about it. There's no way to really sort negative comments. There's surprisingly no negative comments. Yeah, it's a gateway drug for new players. I think you can, from Eternal Returnal, I think you can learn the mechanics for sure, but what really separates tabletop role-playing games to digital role-playing games is the feeling that anything is possible. Balanced choices of the players and GMs come up with things on the fly. You can never understand that from just playing each board game or any other digital role-playing game, as sophisticated as they can be in terms of player's choice. Just remember from Newski79, just remember that you can never replace imagination or achieve the like from playing a video game. Baldur's Gate 3 looks fantastic, but learning D&D around the table with dice and your friends, nothing comes close to that. Well, it's so far positive, so that's good, I guess. We're going to look at how to start your own D&D game from Baldur's Gate, so let's see. It might just be the same stuff, we'll see.
Hopefully there's someone who has played Baldur's Gate 3, has finished it, and they want to play the tabletop version of Dungeons & Dragons. What is your...
Yeah, because you want people to pay more money for it.
For that new player.
Okay, so there's a lot that goes into that. Do they have a group to play with, right?
Right.
Now, so are you thinking,
How do you find a group? Yeah, what is your advice for new players like who have just played Baldur's Gate 3?
And they don't know anybody that plays tabletop.
Maybe they don't know anyone who plays tabletop right now.
All right, so my first thing would be talk to your friends who've also played it and also love it and be like, hey, there's this other game that we can play that is this thing. And one of the things we've talked about is there's a lot of things that are inspired by D&D or that, you know, its influence has trickled out. Like you find mimics in other video games running around out in the world.
There's one game that has mimics. It is the scariest fucking game I've ever played. It's called Prey. It's on my channel. Absolutely amazing game. It was crazy. I highly recommend you play it. I highly recommend you watch your favorite YouTuber play it. It was insane. But that was the scariest mimic game that I have ever played. Tears of the Kingdom came in second just because of the trees. And I know that Moonlighter also has some mimics, but they're not as scary because they're like 2D. So, but anyways, yeah, there are games that have mimics and stuff.
that sort of thing. This is, you mentioned it before, this is the one where D&D is the basis of this game. They are interconnected. They are the same thing, right?
Yeah.
And so this is the way where you can be like, hey, we all talked about this video game we played. We had a great time with it. We talked about the different characters we played and the different paths we took to get to the end.
Let's just, I'm gonna go on Steam real quick. Let me make sure that you guys get to still see my screen. I want to see. I want Steam support. Can I just do this? Yeah. I spelled it wrong. Oh, it's gonna be $60. Jesus. Oh, it does have online co-op. How many? Well, that doesn't tell. Ooh, I need Remnant 2 as well. Hold on, I'm getting distracted. Okay, so Baldur Gate 3. It is co-op, but how many people can play it? Baldur's Gate 3 releases August 3rd. Well, it's the 31st of July, so gather your party and return to the Forgotten Realms. That's your content, nobody cares. I had no intention of playing goal. Oh, that's a good one. Are there any negative comments? Oh, it's all positive. Ooh, there's 7,000 negative. First off, all this is a thumbs down. Full price, very well designed story. Well, yeah. I mean, so this is all just people who are buying it early. It's like, stop buying games early. Like, there are a certain population that needs to obviously buy the game early to see all the bugs. But if you're wanting to actually enjoy the game, wait a few months. Wait like 2 to 3 months, because Harry Potter, or Hogwarts Legacy, everyone flooded it, their servers went down, the game was crashing, like, everyone was mad at it, but it's like, you guys did not wait long enough for the devs to figure out all these problems. You were like, you all flooded the gates and then started complaining. It's like, when you have a child, it takes time for them to grow. So that's the same with a game. The game is not going to be perfect when it comes out the first day, so give it time to be made. But anyways, let's get back into it.
And our different endings. This has this other expression where we can...
Oh. Ooh, 2 to 4 players. Okay. Now, 2 to 4 players is not the average party size, but...
make up whatever we want. We can
Well,
go with the story. We don't
yes,
have
it
to
is.
follow the path that they have set with freaky mind flayer tadpoles in our heads. That's cool. We can do other things. I had this great idea. What if the story was this thing with this demon? We can do that. So my advice would be talk to your friends who also love Baldur's Gate and be like, hey, Dungeons and Dragons, what do you think? And then we've got all kinds of tools for you.
Again, at this point, you have a very good idea of the environments.
Yeah.
A lot of the villains, a lot of the monsters, how
Yep.
they behave, how they interact. So you are kind of prepped to maybe be the new dungeon master, right?
Yeah.
For the continuation of that story.
Yeah, absolutely.
For that, especially for like
Absolutely.
a whole new group of people.
Yeah, I mean, imagine, so, that first-time player, or for a potential player, talk to your friends. If they're interested, grab one of the starter sets, right? Grab Dragons the Stormwreck Isle. It's got every...
Dragons of the Stormwreck Isle. Where's the call? Ah, it's a frickin'. Damn it. We should be able to see. There it is. Oh, it's only $15. What? There's no way. $14.90. That's actually cheap. Wow, they were. Huh. Just so you know, Dungeons & Dragons is the most expensive thing that you could, ever get into, other than gambling, obviously. But, for, passing time with friends, video games are much cheaper. Gonna be honest. Obviously wait for a sale, but they're much cheaper.
Everything you need, you just have to do the talking parts and bringing the characters to life and having fun with your friends, and then think about these cool things you did in the game.
Man has a D&D tattoo on his arm.
You need, you just have to do the talking parts and bringing the characters to life and having fun.
I
with your
just
friends,
realized
and
that.
then think about...
Man has a D&D logo on his arm.
These cool things you did in the game.
Man,
what really excited you? What ramped up your tension? What were you afraid that was going to happen? And just remember that as you're running it, and then you'll find ways to sort of...
Such a weird place for it.
The starter kits give you everything you need really to start the game.
Oh yeah,
and it's a great introduction. So you've got the dice, you've got character sheets.
Please spend your money
for conditions.
Please.
And stuff. Mm-hmm. They are very good educational resources for taking that next step. In particular, after playing something like Baldur's Gate 3.
Absolutely,
it's a pretty smooth transition. I feel like.
Yeah. And the newest starter set, the Dragons of Stormwreck Isle.
Yeah.
It's so built specifically for the very first time person picking up D&D,
right?
Never having played it before. If you come in with Baldur's Gate 3 as your background, you're already ahead of the curve. And then we've got videos that help you walk through on how-to on those.
I have a few.
Yeah, 2-hour walkthroughs.
Yeah.
Check out the rest of my videos.
Yeah, so that is the best starting place. Once you have a group that wants to play, that's interested in playing.
Even for one-on-one, I would say that's a pretty easy thing to do now. And there are things within the starter kit, the most recent one, where you can have a companion that kind of helps out. So if you want Dungeon Master for just one of your friends. And if they've played Baldur's Gate 3, they're going to be very familiar with this is my character, these are my companion characters. Exactly. That's the thing. They are very prepared to manage an NPC off to the side, or the Dungeon Master will be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or how to interact with them.
These experiences can speak to each other so well. I can't wait.
I have to mention D&D Beyond. If you want to make your character, the character sheet that you see in Baldur's Gate is remarkably similar to what you find in D&D.
So, just so you know, the D&D Beyond, you only get 6 free characters, and then you have to do the subscription to get unlimited.
D&D Beyond walks you through all of that process, adding your spells, adding your ability scores, all of that.
Artificer is a thing that you have to buy.
You literally take all the scores that you have in Baldur's Gate 3 and just port them into D&D Beyond.
Yep.
You have to manually
grab
do
your
it.
portrait if you wanted to. Take a screen grab, shove that as your portrait for your D&D Beyond.
Yeah, absolutely.
Digital toolset character.
It's funny. Character customization with the I didn't even think of that.
Player who can't get into a game and just makes characters over and over again and has however many. Imagine instead of.
That would be so. Oh my god! I totally didn't even think of that. You could just use the portrait, dude. Okay.
You just kind of make your.
I might just use Baldur's Gate for this.
Baldur's Gate, you get to make your character and then take it out, take it for a spin, right? You get to do that same thing with your, loads and loads of characters you haven't gotten to play yet. Then you get to play them.
So for those that already have a D&D character, what's your advice for bringing your D&D character into Baldur's Gate 3? Because there is an alarming amount of subclasses there to choose from. There's some from Xanathar's, from
Yep.
several different books.
And some
even
new ones too.
Tasha's.
Okay,
Yeah.
so-
Some new that are just for the video game.
Right.
So, yeah, Larian's own sort of spin
yeah.
on things. If your subclass is represented in the game, I mean, just go as one-to-one as you can, right? Just, think about what was fun playing the, sort of the tactical experience or the just the interactive experience of
So
your
it's
character
probably
in
the
tabletop.
same. It's probably the same story over and over again, but you're gonna try new characters.
And look for those pieces in the video game because you're probably going to find them. Now, it doesn't have absolutely every spell that you'll find in every source book, but there's a ton. There's so many, so you're going to be able to get real close, if not spot on.
How would you sell someone who has played Baldur's Gate 3, and convince them to play D&D, the tabletop game?
Oh, I mean, that's so dependent on the person you're talking to, and
Right.
so you really got to dig into. All right, you played Baldur's Gate 3, you loved it. What did you love about it?
Right.
What was your favorite part? And then once you get them sort of talking about where they really connected with that game, then I would look for what are those touchstones that exist in the tabletop version. So, for example, if someone loves that the Warlock Will in Baldur's Gate 3 loves some interaction that they have with Will's patron and some dynamic that can come out of that. When you can be like, all right, well, here's a Warlock you can play in D&D and tabletop. Here's an example of a patron that I have run for a Warlock player in the past. And
How many characters can you make in Baldur's Gate? Characters can you make in BAU? Oops. Once in a game, you save the game as the host, then close out. When you reload the save, you'll have all 4 characters. You just make it. Okay, so it doesn't really.
we did this cool thing that, not exactly like what happened that you're
It looks like you make a game and then make a character and then go from there. It's
familiar
not
with, but
really.
here's how we did it with this different entity that was granting power. And, isn't that, what do you think? And so you just, throw out those little hooks for their imagination.
It is kind of like a sneaky demo into D&D of like a
yeah.
conversion tool. Like, because
It's a fun pitch.
Yeah, because I mean, to your point, like I mean, again, I could either have someone just play Baldur's Gate 3, or I can ask them like, did you play it? And they're like, yeah. And like you said, like, what did you enjoy? Did you enjoy the social interactions? Did you enjoy those persuasion checks?
Yeah.
There's almost something here for every type of player.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of like, okay, you like the romances, you like the social,
This is like the best idea that they've ever
you
had.
like the combat, or you
Yeah.
like rushing in, or you like the tactical like thinking. on your
Absolutely.
feet as a
Yeah.
wizard.
You could be like, hey, you got to the the goblin camp or the goblin fortress, right? And how did you get into it? Did you talk your way past the guards? Did you
That's
sneak around
aggressive,
the side
man.
and climb the cliffs? Did you use your magic to charm someone? Did you just kick in the gate and have to fight everybody all at once? Good luck.
Any parting thoughts? Anything? Any advice for potential future D&D players?
Jump in, do it.
Yeah.
Like we'd love to have you. We have so many tools here to help you out. We have
I know you want
low
fucking
cost
money.
and free options for you to get in and try. There are so many actual plays that you can watch on Twitch or YouTube.
Yeah.
I mean,
Like
that's
go
true.
watch some people play, see
But-
how it looks.
Okay, well, I mean, honestly, it looks decent. I'm gonna be honest. It looks freaking decent. I thought it was gonna be shit, but it's pretty decent, actually. Well, okay. Well, that is all the time I have for today. I want to thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.